Most people start walking with a very simple expectation. They think if they walk consistently, the scale should move, their body should look different, something visible should happen. And when that doesn't happen fast enough, a quiet doubt sets in. Maybe walking isn't enough. Maybe my body just doesn't respond anymore. But here's the part almost no one tells you. The body doesn't wait for visible change to begin adapting. It starts shifting long before the scale ever moves. In the very first minutes of walking, your body begins sending metabolic signals that have nothing to do with sweating, calorie burn, or exhaustion. It's subtle. It's quiet. And because you can't see it, most people assume nothing is happening. Yet deep inside, your cells recognize movement as an opportunity to rebalance energy. Scientists often describe this moment as a kind of silent activation, a physiological whisper that sets the stage for everything that comes later. And understanding this changes how you see progress entirely. What makes this early shift so important is not what you feel, but what your body is already preparing to do next. Walking doesn't begin by changing how you look. It begins by changing how your body handles energy. And that change starts much sooner than most people realize. Within just a few minutes of walking, your muscles begin asking for glucose at a surprisingly steady pace. There's no urgency, no stress response, just a quiet demand for fuel. It's as if your muscles are saying, "We can handle this now." And here's where things get interesting. This early glucose uptake doesn't rely on insulin the way most people assume. Movement itself opens a pathway that allows sugar to move from the bloodstream into working muscles without insulin needing to intervene. As this happens, insulin levels naturally begin to ease back. Not because something is wrong, but because something is working. Your body recognizes that muscles are doing a job insulin normally has to manage alone. This shift happens silently, long before fat burning becomes significant, and long before any visual change appears. And that quiet adjustment sets the tone for what your metabolism does next. This is where walking begins to do something most people never associate with it. Your muscles quietly step into a role insulin usually plays. As they contract, they activate a pathway scientists call contraction-mediated glucose transport. You don't need to remember the name, but the effect matters. It allows your muscles to pull sugar out of your bloodstream without waiting for insulin's signal. In that moment, insulin doesn't have to work harder. It can finally step aside. And when insulin isn't being pushed to manage every spike, levels begin to fall naturally, not forcefully, not aggressively, just enough to restore balance. This is one of the earliest benefits of walking for insulin sensitivity, and it happens long before fat oxidation becomes meaningful. What's even more fascinating is that this effect doesn't end when your walk ends. For hours afterward, your muscles remain more receptive to glucose. It's as if the doors stay slightly open, ready to handle the next wave of energy more gracefully. That means the next meal creates smaller peaks, smoother responses, and far less metabolic stress. If you've ever noticed feeling steadier after eating when you've walked earlier in the day, that wasn't psychological. That was physiology doing exactly what it was designed to do. As your muscles continue moving, something deeper begins to happen at the cellular level. Walking flips on thousands of tiny molecular switches inside your muscle fibers. One of the most important is an energy sensor known as AMPK, often described as the body's internal fuel gauge. When your muscles contract, AMPK wakes up and signals that energy needs to be handled efficiently, not stored recklessly. This activation gently opens the door for more glucose to enter muscle cells without requiring extra insulin. It's a protective mechanism, not an aggressive one. At the same time, walking improves blood flow to working muscles, delivering oxygen and nutrients more smoothly. That improved circulation doesn't just support movement. It changes the biochemical environment inside the muscle itself. With more oxygen available, glucose is used more efficiently, which further reduces the demand for insulin. This creates a reinforcing loop. Muscles use fuel better, insulin pressure drops, and metabolic stress eases. For people struggling with insulin resistance, this matters enormously. Their cells don't respond well to insulin's message, but movement bypasses the communication problem entirely. Muscles don't need insulin's permission when they're contracting. They simply pull in glucose and get to work. And the more often this process happens, the better muscles become at repeating it. Walking doesn't just solve a moment. It teaches your muscles how to respond differently in the future. This is where consistency begins to matter more than intensity. One of the biggest misunderstandings in health is the belief that meaningful progress only begins after fat loss becomes visible. In reality, metabolism responds to behavior long before it reflects in body shape. When you walk, your muscles become an alternative gateway for glucose, reducing the amount of insulin your body needs in real time. And this shift has nothing to do with weight loss. It has everything to do with movement. As walking continues, cell signaling improves. Muscles become more sensitive to insulin's instructions, which means the same amount of insulin can do more work, so the body doesn't need to release as much of it. This improvement in insulin sensitivity consistently appears in medical research weeks before any noticeable change on the scale. Inside, the system is recalibrating. Outside, it looks unchanged. This reduction in insulin matters because chronically high insulin is linked to increased appetite, fatigue, inflammation, and difficulty accessing stored fat. Lower, steadier insulin creates the conditions fat loss needs to happen later. It prepares the hormonal environment before any physical change appears. If you've ever felt discouraged because your weight wasn't changing, hold on to this. Your metabolic health improves earlier than your reflection does. The body adjusts internally first, building stability before allowing visible transformation. And inside working muscle, that internal preparation continues quietly. Inside each working muscle, a quiet but powerful movement begins. Microscopic gatekeepers called GLUT, 4 transporters, start moving toward the surface of the muscle cell. These transporters act like small doorways, allowing glucose to leave the bloodstream and enter the muscle where it can be used or stored safely. What makes this moment remarkable is how it happens. Walking summons these doors without insulin having to give the command. This is one of the clearest examples of how movement bypasses hormonal limitations. Once glucose enters the muscle, it's quickly converted into energy or stored as glycogen for later use. As a result, less sugar remains circulating in the blood, and the pancreas doesn't have to release large amounts of insulin to keep things under control. The system stays calm because it's being managed proactively. Over time, repeating this process teaches muscles to store more glycogen and handle energy more efficiently. That's why many people who walk regularly report feeling more energized, not more tired. Their muscles aren't scrambling for fuel anymore. They've learned how to manage it with ease. Think of it like tidying up before things become chaotic. Walking prevents the buildup before it becomes a problem. The body isn't reacting in panic. It's maintaining balance by design. And this quiet efficiency sets the stage for something even more important: how your body responds to food next. Because what happens after you eat changes dramatically when your muscles are already awake. Right after you eat, your bloodstream becomes crowded with glucose molecules waiting to be managed. Under normal circumstances, this triggers a sharp insulin response as the body tries to keep blood sugar from rising too high. But when you take a short walk after a meal, that entire dynamic begins to change. Your muscles step in almost immediately, absorbing glucose before it has a chance to spike. This is why research consistently shows that even a 10-minute walk after eating can significantly lower post-meal blood sugar levels. The muscles act like a sponge, pulling sugar out of the bloodstream at the exact moment it would otherwise surge. And this works regardless of your fitness level. You don't need to be athletic. You don't need to walk fast. The timing matters more than the intensity. As muscles handle the excess glucose, insulin doesn't have to rise as aggressively. Energy levels stay steadier. That familiar post-meal crash, the fog, the heaviness, the sudden urge to sit down, becomes less intense or disappears entirely. What many people feel as low energy after eating is often just unstable blood sugar. Walking smooths that out. Think of a walk after your next meal not as exercise, but as metabolic maintenance. A small investment of time that keeps your system from being overwhelmed. You'll often feel the difference before you consciously believe it. And deep inside your muscles, another system is already responding. Deep inside your muscles, another system responds the moment you start walking. Tiny structures called mitochondria begin to increase their activity almost immediately. These are the parts of your cells responsible for turning fuel into usable energy, and when they sense movement, they shift into a more efficient mode. This isn't about burning fat yet. It's about learning how to use fuel without creating chaos. As walking continues, mitochondria become better at processing glucose and fatty acids, reducing the pressure placed on insulin to manage energy alone. This is what scientists call improved metabolic flexibility. Your body becomes better at switching between fuels instead of relying on constant insulin spikes to get through the day. The result is steadier energy, clearer thinking, and fewer dramatic highs and lows. What's remarkable is how early these changes appear. Research shows that mitochondrial function can improve within a few weeks of regular walking, even when body weight stays the same. The scale may be unmoved, but the engine underneath is being rebuilt. With each walk, you're adding capacity, training your cells to handle energy with calm efficiency rather than urgency. Over time, this quiet adaptation compounds. People often notice they feel more energized after walking, not drained. Their mornings feel smoother. Their afternoons feel less foggy. These aren't coincidences. They're signals that your metabolism is learning to respond differently. And once this foundation is in place, something important becomes easier: consistency. One of the most important truths about metabolic health is that it responds far more to consistency than intensity. Your body doesn't need extreme effort to adapt. It needs repeated signals it can trust. Walking delivers exactly that. Because it's low strain, it doesn't overwhelm your system, and that makes it something you're far more likely to repeat day after day. Long periods of sitting do the opposite. When muscles stay inactive for hours, glucose uptake drops sharply and insulin becomes less effective. Even people who exercise later in the day can experience this slowdown if most of their time is spent sitting. The real issue isn't sitting itself. It's uninterrupted sitting. The moment you stand up and walk, even briefly, you interrupt that metabolic stagnation. Studies consistently show that short walking breaks spread throughout the day can dramatically reduce blood sugar spikes and lower insulin demand. The length of the walk matters far less than the act of breaking the stillness. Movement reactivates enzymes and pathways that simply go dormant when you remain still. Your metabolism thrives on motion, even in small doses. Over time, your muscles begin to remember this pattern. Each walk leaves a biological trace that makes the next one more effective. The body learns what you repeat, and this is why gentle, frequent movement reshapes metabolic health so reliably. Not through force, but through rhythm. Which brings us to the final realization that ties everything together. As all of these changes come together, walking begins to mean something different. It stops being exercise and becomes communication. With every step, you're sending a clear signal to your body that energy can be handled calmly, that insulin doesn't need to overreact, and that balance is possible again. This shift isn't loud, it isn't dramatic, but it's deeply powerful. High, unstable insulin blocks access to stored fat. Lower, steadier insulin opens the door. This is why walking prepares the body for fat loss, long before fat loss ever appears. The hormonal gate must open first, and walking is the key that fits it. Beyond hormones, daily movement reshapes blood flow, muscle enzymes, mitochondrial capacity, appetite signals, and stress responses. All of it works together, quietly rebuilding your metabolic foundation. Many people notice clearer thinking, steadier energy, and fewer cravings, long before they notice any change in the mirror. Those are signs your metabolism is calming down, not slowing down. And that calm is what allows progress to last. If this video helped you understand your body a little better today, you may want to stay with this channel. We focus on what's actually happening inside, long before the outside catches up,